Houston, you're muted.
Wow. You'd think after like 150 episodes I'd have this down right. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Puget Systems Live Q&A show. I think this is our first one of the year. Yeah, I think so. So awesome. Thank you for joining us. We have as our guest today, Stephen W. Howard, Galad on Instagram.
Galad. Yeah.
It kept coming up as Galahad, and I'm like, that's not right. Technical illustrator and Lego enthusiast. This is going to be a lot of fun because I'm personally interested and excited on both of those things, technical illustration and Lego. I wanted to mention this before the stream, but I noticed your A-Wing and shuttle in the background. I have Millennium Falcon at home.
You have the large one?
The big one, the cube. Yeah, the big black cube. Yeah.
Jealous.
Sorry. I was a little jealous. I'm like, oh, you got the A-Wing. That's jealousy for me. But I'm like, yeah. So I always like to start, just in case anybody doesn't already know, give us a little intro of who you are and what you do.
So I'm Stephen Howard. I'm from California, and I am a professional 3D animator and technical illustrator for a company called Maxar. I animate and illustrate satellites and spacecraft and other various space things for our marketing team and for the greater Maxar. And on the side, I am an overly obsessed Lego enthusiast, and I love doing digital Legos when I can.
Yeah. So and that's like, okay, so that was part of what interested me and inspired me to invite you onto the show is the Lego side of thing. And then as I mentioned before the stream, as I started to kind of research more about who you are and what you do, I got super stoked about the technical illustration stuff because, man, cutaways and exploded views and all that kind of stuff is just super cool and interesting. Even if I don't really understand what it is that's going on, it looks so cool. And so we'll kind of touch on that a little bit, but I definitely want to focus more on the digital Lego and the 3D animation and that side of the thing, because that is why you have a system from us. So I guess let's start there. What were you? Why did you need such a hardcore system for digital Lego?
So a couple of years ago, I started getting into digital Lego because I didn't have too many Lego out here in California. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to design a set idea. Some people may have seen it, but it's the Gemini capsule from NASA. And that got 10,000 supporters on Lego Ideas. They didn't accept it, but it got 10,000 supporters. So that kind of opened me to the realms of digital Lego. And I was like, well, since I don't have my own enough Lego pieces at home, like, well, maybe I can explore other ideas. And so I just kept pushing and going into different contests. I had an iMac at the time, and it was semi-sufficient. If you use Bricklink Studio, the program of my choice for digital Lego, you can pretty much have any machine. But I also use Cinema 4D. I learned Cinema 4D from my company Maxar, and I just really love the software. I love being able to build things in 3D. And I realized I could export from Bricklink into Cinema 4D.
Oh, cool.
And so then I started playing around with that, but the render engine, I got introduced to Octane, and iMacs just don't have the graphics cards. CUDA enabled graphic cards for Octane. So then I built a Hackintosh, and it is by far the most technically challenging thing I've ever done in my life. I wouldn't recommend it for most people. And about a year ago, Adobe forced my hand into getting a Puget because they required updating from High Sierra to, I think it was like Mojave. And I could do that on the Hackintosh, but there was a great risk of losing everything on that machine. I had like two 1080 Ti's. It was a great setup, but I didn't want to risk that.
Sure.
And so I reached out to Puget. I know Puget from Destin from Smarter Every Day and from Corridor Digital. Both of those I obsessively follow, and I was like, they have Pugets and those things fly, and I can get the graphics card I want. I know at the time everyone was trying to get their hands on 3080s, which I've got two in this machine, and I was like, well, yeah, this is the right place. And also, like, having worked on the Hackintosh, I didn't want to have to like think through things myself.
Yeah.
You know, I can do it, but it's exhausting. Puget has been phenomenal. Like, I've had some things happen here and there, and the response is just like that. And you guys keep coming back and be like, is it resolved? Is it resolved? Is it still going fine? It's still going fine. I can't recommend you guys enough. It's been amazing. Best computer company out there.
I love to hear that, because that highlights a good point. It's not your job to know all that stuff, to jump through all those. Like you said, you can, but man, what a hassle! Like that's
I mean, it's like being a traditional artist, a traditional painter, and you don't want to have to like keep repairing your own stuff. Like, that's not, you want to create. Or even like Lego, get a Lego set. I don't want to have to like keep trying to figure things out on my own. If I'm going to build a Millennium Falcon, like, there it is. Have all the pieces there ready for me. So yeah, that's why I moved to Puget, and it's enabled me to do crazier and crazier things, because I always feel like I'm pushing the limit of what I can do. And now I'm trying to learn how to scale things back, because I'm at the point where I always feel like the hardware should be, you shouldn't be worrying about your hardware, and like the hardware should fly for you. But eventually you're going to hit a wall with software, and I'm starting to hit the wall with my software, and that's just a given. Like, the 4D can only process so much, or After Effects can only think through and process so much, or Photoshop, etc. And that's where I'm hitting my wall, and I'm okay. But as long as the computer's running fine, like, then that's a relief for me. So like, when I do digital stuff, I'm doing like 13 to 30,000 piece builds.
Wow.
You bring that into Cinema 4D, that's a lot of polygons, a lot of stuff with the computer to kind of chug through.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. 30,000. I wonder, I'm curious, like, are there any shortcuts to be taken, or are the like digital models that you're making, like, are they like true to life, I guess? Like, they're not hollow or anything, like these are actual 30,000 individual little Lego pieces?
So a lot of people out there will argue like, oh, digital Lego, it's like cheating, and they won't stand up in real life. Some of the things I build digitally, for sure, will not stand up in real life, and I know it, because I started as a traditional builder. Like, I know how to build my own things and make sure they stand and they're strong and robust. So when I approach a digital model, I'll do that, but I will also start to remove the internals and some of the pieces. And there are some digital Lego bricks, like if in Bricklink, say you have like a 2x6 piece. Usually they'll have the little rods on the inside, and that's when you connect it to another one, it has that friction. But they also have the much older 2x4 piece that has no bars inside. So I've been considering those, because then when I bring it into the Cinema 4D, that's less polygons for it to consider. And my renders are moving faster. So yeah, there's ways of thinking through of like, if I'm going to build something solely digitally, I'm going to first approach it like I would build it in real life, make sure it has the right like strength and connections, everything else. But then I'll subtract, knowing like, okay, well, this is never going to see the light of day digitally. So I'm going to remove it, make it light, make it efficient. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I guess once these are created, other beyond just putting it on Instagram or whatnot, what do you do with them?
So there are times where I'll build something digitally with the hopes of building it in real life. So a lot of people in the digital Lego world will use software like Bricklink Studio or Mecha Bricks, or the now retired Lego Digital Designer, got retired today. So they'll use that for prototyping. Like, they don't have the bricks, or they want to just test something out before they actually build in real life. One nice thing about Bricklink Studio is connected to Bricklink, so you could design something digitally and then export it to their site, and you can buy from individual sellers the pieces. And as you're building it, you can see how much it's going to cost you. Like, you look at a part and be like, oh, that's a $5 part and that's a $3 part. I'm going to get the $3 version.
Yeah.
So you have kind of like that advantage. So sometimes I'll do that. There are things where I want to build. I have like this samurai head. It's kind of like the little demon head I've got over here.
Oh yeah, okay.
I want to make a large samurai, and so I have this samurai head, and I want to make the rest, but I just right now can't afford it, and I don't have the parts, so I'm just designing digitally and seeing what works, what doesn't, and then eventually I can order those parts, build in real life. So there's that aspect of it. The other is some of it's just Instagram, Flickr. I'll participate in a contest and like, oh, I got 2 weeks to do this contest on Lego Ideas or newelementary.com. And so I'll just crank something out really fast instead of having to like wait to get all the parts I need. I can create something. And then the other realm that I'm going into right now, and eventually starting a YouTube channel based on it, is stylization. Lately, I've been really into this, into the show Arcane on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And the animation studio behind it, Fortiche, said something that I've been really in line with lately. Is that they were saying something to the effect of like 3D. A lot of people try to do realistic stuff, like you see in Marvel movies or other films, and it's still valid. Like people still should do realistic looking 3D animation. But there's this whole realm that's kind of been left. There are people who are exploring it, but it hasn't been as deeply explored. They like what Fortiche was doing with like KDA or Arcane, and they have this kind of like merging of 2D and 3D, and it's very stylized, like Into the Spider-Verse, like that animation. Awesome. That's just breathtaking, and it's exploring what can you do with 3D that hasn't really been done before, or hasn't been as prominent. And I was kind of thinking along the same lines with digital Lego. Is I've done realistic stuff. There are people who've done realistic builds, and you eventually hit a wall. Like you achieve something that looks realistic. Right. Cool. But that's it. You can't go any further. Once you've achieved it, it's done. You can keep creating things, but you can't necessarily get better. You either hit the uncanny valley or you've achieved it, and that's it.
Right.
But as far as like a stylized look, that is limitless. You can, eat your heart out. Like just go down that road and explore. And so lately I've been going into that and seeing like, how can I get a more artsy look? So I've been using Octane and Arnold, and I've been layering them on each other in After Effects. Yeah. Maybe not the most efficient way, but it achieves this really cool look because Arnold has great toon shaders. Octane has really great ability of light emission, and I feel it's pretty fast as well. Yeah. And I don't know Arnold that well. So I'm trying to like learn all these software all at the same time. Yeah. And I'm just seeing what's possible with that. And through that, I'm trying to do like motion capture. I don't have a motion capture suit or anything like that. So right now I'm using Mixamo for rigs, but I want to see like different animations that can be done with it. Yeah.
Oh, that'll be cool. Yeah. I suppose at this, you say you're, I suppose, is the channel, your YouTube channel ready? Like, can I share it? Do you?
So it is, the channel exists, but has nothing on it yet.
Okay.
It's called Digitally Assembled.
I love it.
And so it's a vacant channel on YouTube.
Okay.
But I'm currently working on the first episode, and so I'm probably like 2-3 weeks ish away from having content uploaded. Nice. The thing that kind of pains me right now is I've screen captured almost everything. There's stuff I unfortunately didn't screen capture of my process, but what I have is already like in the 80-hour range that I'm going to have to condense into like a 15-minute episode. Wow. So I'm like, what do I show? What do I not show? Because I want people to see like the process that it takes to create these digital works, because often people have the thought with any digital medium, it's like, oh, you go on a computer and you click some things and it works for you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not really. No. It's not that easy.
Yeah. Can you describe some of that process? I'm curious myself how it goes from like ideation to final product.
Yeah. So eventually I'll show like a little example of what I'm working on. But generally my process is that I'll build something in Bricklink Studio.
Okay.
It's a free to download software. And I'll design my model, and then I will take that and export to Mechabricks. You have the option to export as a collada, and I don't know what happened. Either Cinema 4D or Bricklink changed their interpretation of collada, so I have to use like a FBX converter for that file. But I export to Mechabricks because they interpret the files better when they export from Mechabricks. The only pain point is whenever I export to Mechabricks, they don't have all the parts that Bricklink Studio has. Okay. So I have to say, like, it's a 2,000 piece model. There's probably like 10 pieces that I still have to export from Bricklink to a collada file that has to be converted to FBX.
Oh, wow.
All these like weird steps. It also sucks whenever I bring it into to Mechabricks, the axes on some objects are flipped. So I have to like make sure I know my model really well and find all the pieces that have been flipped. I can always do it in Cinema 4D and I can turn around, but it doesn't have like that snapping feature. Like Cinema 4D is more of your 3D software.
Right.
Mechabricks and Bricklink are more of your kind of CAD software. It's not like CAD designing, but it feels like a CAD software. And so I will bring that to their export to Cinema 4D, and then I have to scale. They come at different scales from each other, so I have to like try and scale the parts just right.
Oh, wow.
And then I got to retexture it. And there's this great website out there by Ryan Howarder, I think his name is. He's actually compiled every single color Lego has ever produced with their hex codes, RGB, CMYK, all the different naming, like nomenclature from Bricklink, nomenclature from Lego, nomenclature from other places. So I have this whole list, and I love having that hex code because then I can just go into, like if I'm in Octane, I can make a diffuse or a glossy material, and I can just click, put in the hex code for the color. Done. There's my material. I can add some scratches and other like detail to that, and I can attach the material to each of those bricks. And then from there, I will, like for what I'm doing now, I'm using Espresso to animate some of the eyes and the hair. Then I'm using I build it from start to finish. If I'm building like a figure, and it's solely going to exist in 3D space, I'm going to make sure that it's going to match a Mixamo rig. So the skeletal of a Mixamo rig, I want to make sure that I'm not going to have major collisions. I think I have solutions around not having collisions in the future with collision dynamics. Right now, don't want to venture there. It's too many things going on to figure out. And so like the figure that I've got, I know some people have seen before. I made Clinton Jones, who used to be a reporter. I made an animated figure of him, and so I'm kind of using that same sort of like there are gaps between his like chest and his torso, just so that they're hard bricks. I don't want to have collisions with each other.
Oh, sure. Like where they might like pass through each other physically or something like that's weird.
It still happens, but you don't see it. So I try to have anything that's visible not collide with each other. And in the future, I want to avoid all like bricks colliding with each other, unless I want them to like fall apart and go everywhere. So I'll do that, and I'll rig basically sort of constrain it to an animated rig and use a ghost animated rig to animate my figure. So I basically have two rigs, my animated rig and my T-pose rig. and every part is constrained to my rig, and then to the animated rig, and then I will render that out. I'll use Grayscale Gorilla plugins, because who wants to spend hours and hours trying to figure out how to light something when you can use their light kits and adjust from there?
Yeah.
So I'll use their plugins, saves tons of time, and then I'll render it out. In the case of the thing I'm working on now, I'm using both Arnold and Octane.
Right.
Give my look, and then I will render them out as PNGs, because I've discovered in the past if you render as MP4 and it crashes, your file's gone. But if you render as PNGs, then you can take that whole PNG sequence into After Effects, and if it crashes at any point, and the computer's not going to crash, but Octane will crash, because Octane is touchy. Sorry, Octane. But if it crashes, then I can just restart on the frame that it crashed, and then take those extra frames. And then I learned it from my coworker. It was brilliant. I was like, this is, props to Moose, if you're listening, props to you for suggesting that. That helped make sure when crashes happen, I still have my file. And so then you can just import the sequence of PNGs into After Effects and do all the jazz there. Nice. And then that's my finished project. So
yeah,
a lot.
Yeah, you see their little like
either, but I'm just doing all those things to achieve this.
Wow, all that, man, a lot of hoops. It seems a little. Well, I mean, it's what you got to do to get the job done. But you'd think that these things would all play together a little bit more nicely.
There is a way. So, and I often suggest this to people who are just starting out in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
Do Blender. Blender is free, and if you have just beginning to understand 3D, go with Blender. It's perfect, especially if you want to do digital Lego. You can go from Mechabricks, and Mechabricks is integrated into Blender. Those two are friends.
Oh, okay. They're friends.
But as someone who is familiar with Adobe products, I originally started out with, so I learned 3D on my job about 2014. I went from doing 2D illustration to, hey, we need to have you expand into some of the 3D animation. Started with this program called Strata. Most people don't know it. It's very limited, very antiquated. Hate it. And I suggested my team getting Cinema 4D because I saw some other technical illustrators out in the field using it. And one of the companies we were partnered with at the time was using it. And so I eventually convinced my team to get Cinema 4D, learned it on the job.
Nice.
I mean, there are some stressful moments where my manager would come over to me and be like, hey, Steven, we have a robotics animation that this customer needs in 2 weeks. And I'm like, but I don't know how to do rigging. Yeah. So you have 2 weeks. And so I'd have to learn. And another reason why I went with Cinema 4D is there was so much material on YouTube that I could learn the software from that. Even to this day, I think it has some of the most amount of tutorials out there. Blender is probably catching up.
Okay.
But I enjoy the software because of all the resources to learn it. And it was, to this day, I still think it's one of the most intuitive 3D softwares out there.
Oh, cool. That helps a lot.
Yeah, it makes sense. Blender, I know Blender's improved their UI, but I still hate it. If you're familiar with Cinema 4D or Maya or 3ds Max, if you're even there, you'll understand what I mean by if you open Blender, you're like, where is everything? Why is it this way? And that's the prohibitor for me touching Blender. I've tried many times, and I just get so frustrated that I just I'm not gonna bother. There are other things I want to do. I want to learn Unreal. And so I'm going to dedicate my time to learning that instead of trying to learn this program that it's what's that term for it's free and other people are contributing to it.
Open source.
Open source. Yeah. It's one of those open source things. And that's tends to be the disadvantage of open source is UI is not great on open source platform.
Yeah. That's unfortunate.
To be fair, and I think Blender is amazing. So if you're listening and you're just starting out and you want to get into digital Lego, and you want to go beyond what Bricklink can afford you, do Blender, because
Nice.
you'll get awesome things and it'll be way easier and it's more integrated. But if you're insane like me, then you can hit me up and teach you how to go through the method of getting to Cinema 40 with digital Lego.
Yeah. Oh man, that's pretty cool. Man. Oh man, I'm curious about the technical illustration side too.
Yeah.
So I guess as a I try to avoid the whole like how did you get started sort of questions, but I am genuinely curious. Like, were you just kind of one of those artsy kids from the beginning, or?
Yeah, so I've always been artsy. Like originally, I wanted to work for the Lego company. That was like my dream job. But then I realized how difficult it was to get the job and how little they would pay you. That I was like, no, there's. So I pursued an art career. I went to Academy of Art from 2006 to 2010, and then during that time, I remember going to Barnes and Nobles when it was still in San Francisco, and I saw the book on the shelf, and I was like, "Oh, this is it. This is what I want to pursue." Because I was considering doing concept art and narrative storytelling or narrative illustration, and that was super competitive. All my friends were phenomenal. My classmates have been working on Disney movies and working for like the Doom Eternal game. Like they're phenomenal artists. I just could not match their skill.
Yeah.
But this book I saw on the shelf was the Star Wars Cutaway and Cross Sections by Hans Jensen and Richard Chasemore.
I think I had that one actually.
Yeah. I remember growing up as a little kid, I didn't want to read. I wanted to look at the books and just see how things work, see the inside. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And so when I saw that on the shelf, I was like, this is what I want to do. And especially in the book, they showed their process, how they made their illustrations. I was like, okay, I want to do, how do they get this job? I want to do that as my career. So I reached out to them, and I started reaching out to other technical illustrators through technicalillustrators.org.
Oh, nice.
Because Academy of Art it's a phenomenal school, teaches great illustration and other courses. But as far as like technical illustration, they didn't know how to teach me that. So I had to self-learn it, which I think is a good thing as an artist. Because if you have that motivation, that drive, then you're potentially going to get really good at it, because no one's teaching you. You're going to go for it, and you're going to learn how to do it. So yeah, I had to reach out and had to start doing stuff on my own and figuring out how people did that. So I started out with like Adobe Illustrator, and I had like a freelance job where I did these like a satellite dish, and I think that's the main reason my current company contacted me, Maxar. It was SSL at the time, Space Systems L'Oreal, but now it's called Maxar. They reached out to me because they had an open position, and it's probably because I had a satellite dish illustration and as technical illustrator, but I got the job, and I've been working since 2012.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, sometimes when it comes to these sort of higher technical sort of things, as an example, the famous turbo encabulator video. Do you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? Sometimes when you're in those sorts of positions, you don't always fully understand what it is you're like from the engineering side of things. Is that kind of how, or do you really need to have a good feel for like
you don't need to have a complete understanding of how things work, but as a technical illustrator, it is very important to understand things. There is a sort of a guidebook to technical illustration by Greg Maxon, something like that. And in the very beginning paragraph, I remember it was saying like, you could be a technical illustrator showing how to operate a nuclear power plant, or you could be showing how to disarm a bomb, and how you draw that could lead to millions of people's lives. Sure. In my case, it's not going to lead to death, but it will lead to potentially millions of dollars lost. Like I always want to say, like, never lessen the impact your art can have, because there have been moments at my company where, like, sometimes my art is just there, and they're mostly concerned with all the technical data that they're reading for a proposal for a satellite or a spacecraft. But there have been a few times where the client has communicated to proposal manager, and they came back to me to say, yeah, one of the main reasons we went with this is because the art sold us the idea. Like, we saw what your company was going for because of the art. And I was like, great. I feel, I feel validated. But it has impact. There are times where I was working on a spacecraft, and I was like, oh, this part doesn't seem quite where it needs to be. It just doesn't seem right. Like, why would this be here? And then I'd contact the engineer, and they're like, yeah, no, that's right. Thanks for catching that. Because, like, they're dealing with like hundreds and thousands of parts.
Sure.
So of course, we all have like little areas we might miss something. And that's why we all work together to like make sure the product is really well, put together and presented. But yeah, there have been moments where I'm like, maybe we should this be here? Or do you guys want to show this side? Like, I have to understand some of the spacecraft technology, because I'm like, oh, you don't want to show that. All right. So I'll make sure I'll rotate the spacecraft when I render it out, so that publicly facing, we're not showing something we're not supposed to. So the customer is satisfied and happy, or we're meeting ITAR, International Trade and Arms Regulation agreements. Yeah. Some of the work I do falls under ITAR and NDA and other things like that. So,
I'm going to get a knock on the door here from somebody. No, it'll be all right. So, yeah, right. Do you find that both your Lego and your work kind of feed each other?
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of see I have a deep passion for space. So that enthusiasm is there for like and I'll build some space related Lego things, but also it's just I just have that sort of detailed eye and detailed mind. And like one of my coworkers kind of called me out. It's like, no wonder all your 3D projects are always so like intense and have so many layers. It's because like when it comes to Lego, like I'm thinking through every individual piece and putting it to, yeah. Like, I sometimes struggle for like the overall picture, because I'm like, every little piece matters. And like, so lately I've been trying to figure out like, how can I be more efficient in everything I do? Even in technical illustration, how can I be more efficient? Lego, how can I be more efficient?
Cool. Yeah. I mean, looking at some of your illustrations and stuff, or in particular the Lego stuff, I'm looking at your Flickr right now, and it makes sense. You know what I mean? You look at it and like, it all looks, and this is probably in part because of the software you use, but like it all looks like stuff that you could actually make.
Yeah, for the most part.
None of it is weird or like, oh, that doesn't make sense. They don't make curvy bits or anything.
Oh, no. So yeah, that's one of the things I make sure to stick to is another friend I have in Australia who does digital Lego. He and I, one of the things like really gets on our nerves is collisions. We've seen some people in the digital community where they'll have like one piece colliding through another piece. I'm like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And like, so whenever I'm trying to do something, I think of it as any medium. There are restrictions. Now, if you're doing an oil painting, you have restrictions in oil painting. You're doing, a pen and ink drawing, you're restricted to your medium to a degree. Or it's a sculpting medium. You have clay. Okay, well, that's all you've got. You can make the clay however you want, but that's all you got to work with. You have this ball of clay. That's it. So, like with Lego, it's this kind of restricting medium that, sure, I might color a brick that doesn't come in a color. Maybe it's like a 2x4 slope, and it only comes in like 6 different colors, but I'm choosing to put in a different color. But I will still make sure that it's going to be a color that Lego produces. I'm never going to go outside that bound. Okay. I'm always going to make sure it is something, even if I'm stylizing it, I still want it to retain that the hex code of that color that Lego produces. Yeah. So maybe it never came in pink. Maybe they never produced it in that pink, but I'm going to put it in pink. Why not?
But it's Lego pink. It's like it's there.
Yeah. And with that, some people for like Lego ideas, like when I made my Gemini, submission, they didn't have a dish that was in their gold color,
Okay.
but the back of Gemini has that gold foil. And so I suggested, hey, no, why not have that as gold? If they produced the set, they probably would have gone with a gold color. And they've done that for some people where they now produce, somebody submits an idea, they really like the idea, and they decide to produce, say, like the Sonic the Hedgehog is one that just came out. I don't know if that's the case, but like maybe there was a color in there suggested, and Lego's like, yeah, we can make that part in blue now. Like you wouldn't have that ability if you didn't have a digital software. I mean, people could like paint the brick, but no. Yeah, I'm a Lego purist to a degree.
Sure. Yeah. I'm curious. Are you excited for anything coming in the future? That in terms of software, hardware, or tools that you play around in?
I'm really excited for what Unreal can afford me. I'm hoping to explore. I know it's a daunting software to kind of get into, but I'm wanting to explore it for work, but also for personal. So seeing like a virtual Lego environment would be pretty cool. And then one day I want to afford a Rococo suit. Yeah, but I don't have an extra 2,500 laying around right now. But if I get a Rococo suit, because right now I'm relying on Mixamo to rig, or the Cinema 4D rigs, and I don't have an iPhone that can, with a LiDAR that can capture the do some motion capture. So a Rococo suit would be amazing, or even the Maxon moves. It'd be nice to have, because then I can create more Lego figures in the future and have do my own animation. I don't have to rely on someone else's existing rig. But like I have some really cool projects planned in the future. Like there's one I have with, so I've done why am I forgetting his name now? Clint. I did a Clint animation a while back, and one of the people who inspired me the most, mostly because of the pain points, was Ren Weichman from Corda. Ren, if you're listening, hit me up. I remember he worked on years ago. He had this the Midas Touch Lego video where whenever like I think it was like Nico would touch, or Sam would touch something, and Sam would touch like a table and it would turn to Lego, or you touch a car and turn Lego, and eventually he touches Nico and then Nico like dies. I remember like I've always watched Corridor digital videos from the very start, but then I watched Corridor Crew. My intro to Corridor Crew was when Ren was having the hardest time rendering the BMW out of Lego. I think it was BMW, but it was a car, and it just kept crashing on him. And I was like, oh, I can relate to you so well. And I started watching them since then for Corridor Crew. And so I have this like Lego project plan. I have Ren as one of these large brick built figures riding a one wheel, and I want to have him like eventually hit a bump and just crash and go into a bunch of pieces. Because then that way I can learn like collision dynamics. That's one thing as like a self-taught 3D artist. I'm always learning how to do things, how to do it more efficiently, how to do different things. In general, I'm a like 3D generalist. There are like 3D artists who will do like just lighting or just texturing or just modeling. But for my line of work and for my personal stuff, I have to do it all. And so there are areas that I want to like learn, like collision dynamics. And so my project that I have planned for Ren will be my collision dynamics kind of crash course. So eventually it'll be like maybe my third or my fourth planned YouTube video. So a couple months from now.
Right on. Yeah.
I
wonder how now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder how some of that was done. Because again, I'm fairly ignorant of this. I'm kind of audience surrogate in a way. Like, like, is that a trap code thing for the physics of how like they're bouncing around or falling apart? Or I know that there's other plugins and tools that kind of attach to like Cinema 4D and whatnot to, so like a building will collapse appropriately or that sort of thing. And I'm
like natively Cinema 4D, I think it has stuff, but it is limited.
right.
Where if you want to go further, you have things like Houdini, if you're a madman and want to learn that, or X particles. And I want to get X particles, but like the price of getting X particles. So like those are my like wish list. It's like Rococo suit and X particles.
Yeah.
Because I definitely want to get into that. But I mean, X particles is not just like the physics. You can do other really cool effects. So often I'm like looking. It's like when I'm looking at a new Lego set, I'm just drooling over it. I'm like, oh, I want it so badly, but I can't afford it.
Cocoa soup. No.
Obviously, the new Lego AT-AT UCS set.
Yes.
$100. I'm never gonna have that.
I was lucky enough. The Millennium Falcon I mentioned, it was a gift, and I admit I haven't opened it or put it together. It's kind of there. I'm halfway between whether I actually want to put it together or if I want to like keep it for 20 years and like see if it is like a real collector's item. But I also don't have. Man, I'm so jealous that you have like the cool spot to like display all of that stuff. And the thing's like 3 feet long. I have nowhere in the house that I could put it.
No, yeah, I know. Eventually you run out of places to put stuff. And I have like this display thing behind me, but I also have my own like Lego room. And
that's cool.
Eventually I hope to have like a Lego shed, but where I can put both the computer and the Lego room together. But for now I have like 2 separate spots.
Yeah. How did you convince your lady to let you have a Lego room? Give me some advice on that, because
we got lucky when we bought this house that had 4 bedrooms, because it's crazy. Like I have my own Lego space, like an 8x10 room, and then I got this studio where I have the Puget, and then I have a work computer. It's a Dell with like 3 GPUs. I've learned the hard way that this house does not have the electrical wiring to support 2 computers rendering at the same time. I've actually tripped the power a couple times. I'm like,
oh yeah,
I can't do render farm or anything else. I can only run one at a time. It's like 5 GPUs. It's a lot of power consumption.
Oh yeah.
And this room gets toasty, man.
Same. I have just my gaming PC, and if I close the office door after about an hour, it's like, cool, man, it's 110 degrees in here. It's crazy. So you got 5 in one room?
Yeah.
No way. No, that's crazy. Yeah, I have to say, I really have to encourage you to on your YouTube channel, because I think we're right in this perfect storm of where the 3D stuff and what do they call it? Real-time 3D is becoming very, very popular with all of the virtual production stuff that's been blowing up for the last 18 months or so. There's a lot of DIY motion capture and 3D, even just green screen stuff like Matt Workman's doing and things like that. So I think in particular, what stands out for me is a lady that we worked with. Her name is Gabriella. She's been tremendous in motion capture, like publishing her journey of learning motion capture and this and that. So I think there's definitely an opportunity for you there to almost be sponsored in a way. Like there are companies out there who are trying to get this stuff into the hands of everyday people.
That would be ideal. So I've seen some digital Lego artists out there, and when I look at like a social media platform, what is a realistic goal? Like what's a number or goal I can reach? And I saw a digital Lego creator out there. I think it's like CT Perion. He has 200,000 subscribers. So I'm like, that's an end goal to achieve in no short amount of time. I mean, like even on Instagram, I've got like 5,000 supporters, trying to break through the 6,000. I'm realizing you hit these different parts as a like on a social media platform. You realize like it takes a bit more effort to like break through.
Yeah.
So like Instagram, I have a 50,000 subscriber like goal, like ultimate goal. There's achievable goals, ultimate goals. But like YouTube, I know eventually I can get monetization. So that's something I want to do eventually down the line is, but also realize that like, what can I produce now? Because when I'm doing digital Lego on the side, you know, I have my day job. It's a good 8 to 9 hours per day that I'm putting in.
Yeah.
So then, and I got two girls under 3, so I got family commitment as well. Usually, I only get like from 8 p.m. till 11 or midnight to work on my project every night.
Yeah,
and I mean that's a decent amount of time, but still, like that's all I've got. Yeah, so it's I want to be able to like finance that, and but realize too like what does it take to what can I achieve now? And I realized like first year probably gonna have like 4 videos tops, but I want to get to 12 videos a year. I don't think I'm ever gonna get more than like 12 videos a year because the stuff I produce takes a good month to 2 months or more to create.
Yeah. Well, you're saying 80 hours of screen capture, like
Yes.
that's not even the voiceover work and stuff that'll have to be done and editing and all that. That's just the raw footage. Like,
yeah.
Oof, crazy. Is that something that you've had to kind of well, I guess learn too, is like the video editing and whatnot?
Yeah, because of work. No, I knew I would eventually get into After Effects and potentially Premiere for YouTube because I wanted to do YouTube at some point. And thankfully, I'm now venturing into that. But because of work, I'm part of a multimedia sort of creative team in the marketing group in my company. And there are graphic designers on our team, but I'm part of the video and 3D animation. There's myself and another who do 3D sculpting, modeling, and animating. Mainly falls on me. I'm kind of like the main 3D animator for my company, and main sort of technical illustration voice. But there's 4 of us in the video editing realm.
Okay.
3 of them know it. They know it really, really well. And
cool.
I am learning After Effects. And so often when I'm in the program, I'm like, I have no clue what I'm doing. But that's always a good thing. It's like, you know, my manager will hand me a project. And it's like, hey, I want you to work on this due in a week. I don't know how to use After Effects. But then through their help and through tutorials, when you have this crash course, you have to get it done, and it's for your job. You learn it.
Yeah.
You know how to do it. And so, yeah, I'm still new at it. But it's a really sweet software. So if some of the stuff I create comes off of like, man, this guy has no idea what he's doing, you're right. But I'm learning it. I'm getting better.
honestly, I think like owning that goes a long way for an audience. Again, people like as much as cool as the end product is, I feel like people are super interested in seeing how it got to that point. It's been mentioned by other creators that, in particular, that stands out to me was Valentina V. She mentioned, I'll post this clip of like the finished thing. I did a commercial for somebody or whatever, and like here's a blip of the finished product, and it'll get 1,500 likes and whatever. But then like I'll post this cheesy, really rough behind the scenes, like just running through the set kind of thing, and it blows up and becomes crazy. And I think it's because people, and she kind of touched on that, it was that they kind of, people want to replicate it. They want to see how it was done so that like, oh, maybe I could try that at home. And so just owning that and like saying, hey, yeah, I stumbled through this, but you know what? I learned how to get there, and like you can too.
Yeah. And it's fine to like, not be the best at the beginning. Like you can make something look phenomenal, but like the file itself is like trash. I remember some of my early 3D models are like, there was one model I made that was 11 million polygons.
Holy cow.
And I had to reduce it because, it was necessary for my team to have something lighter to use. And I got it down to, I think, 17,000 polygons. That was one of the most difficult things of having to like reduce down, and basically I'd build it from scratch. But it taught me a lot of like, because I didn't have that training. I know when I was at Academy of Art, I had friends who were learning 3D modeling, and they would go through like these classes where the teacher's like, you have too many polygons, you got to build again. And like that would force them to know how to have the lowest number of polygons per model. I didn't have that. So I'm here just modeling like, oh, it looks pretty, but it's crashing my machine. So, and I learned the hard way through that. But over time, getting more efficient and seeing like, okay, this is, and it's always good to hear like healthy critiques from other people. Like there's unhealthy critiques of like, oh, you just suck.
Yeah.
Ignore those. But if you get healthy critiques of like, hey, maybe you can, like, I had one of my friends in Australia. I have my intro for my YouTube channel, and it's going to be redone anyway. I'm friends with this metal band. I even did a cover for their upcoming album, and he's going to create a song for my intro, which is awesome. So eventually I'm going to redo my intro. Right now I have something like from Pond 5 as my intro track. But I showed my friend in Australia this, and he's really into like motion graphics, and that's kind of what he does for his job. And he's like, yeah, you should cut out some of this. It's like it's a little too long here, and I was like, yeah, you're right. And so I'm still gonna show what I have, just because I already did it. But it's good to hear advice like that, because then this person's an expert in their field and they're right. Like, yeah, I need to reduce this. Or I hear from my coworker like, that model is way too heavy, or you're making this way too complicated, Steven. And I take that to heart. And like, yeah, next, either on this project or on the next one, I will try to make it more efficient. I think that's something every artist is always trying to like achieve, or should be trying to achieve, is how can you minimize, or not like minimalist, but like how can you make something more efficient? And it's always interesting being in this space too, of having the disciplines, or trying to have the disciplines. Like you can be a sole 3D worker and not bother to label any of your layers and have just terrible layer management. And you can get away with that. And I sometimes do that, I have to admit. But when you work with a team, there's any moment like right now I'm on vacation, I have to make sure my files are usable by my teammates. They have to be able to understand without me telling them what this thing is. Like they can open up the file structure and be like, oh, I get it. This is this item. This is that item. This is how it was made. Yeah. So it's fun.
Comment your code kind of thing,
It's I constantly have to work on it because I get lazy sometimes. I'm just like, and then I open up a file I made like 3 years ago, and I'm like, what was I doing?
That's it. Well, no, yeah, like it's not just, you always got to think about the next person, right? Because you might be.
Yeah, you may be that next person yourself.
You gotta make it easier for the next person.
And like that's something I do with digital Lego is I will, like the project I'm working on now, if you see on my Instagram page, I'm doing this, like it's for my YouTube channel. I'm doing this 3D animated like cyberpunk dude with like this spray paint mask. And just seeing how I can push the stylization and learn on my own through this, and bring people along with the process. But I'm pulling things like his body structure. Some of the parts came from the Clinton Jones Lego figure I made, and his pants were modified from the Ren Whiteman model I'm currently working on. Because I'm like, I don't want to just rebuild this. Like this works, so why not use it?
Oh, that's neat. I'm super. Which, by the way, I think, I don't know if I mentioned it at the beginning, but part of the reason that you came onto my radar was you had made a cool Lego animation of our new logo. Like falling into place.
I had to do that because when I got the Puget, I'm like, well, what's the first digital Lego project I should do on the Puget logo?
And I'll post a direct link to it on your Instagram there, because that was super cool.
It was one of the easier things to do. So
for you, right? But that was really neat. Oh wow.
There are some Lego projects that I will spend hours and hours slaving away on trying to get just right, and some I've actually just let die. There's like this golden mecha eagle, based on one of my classmates and friends from Academy of Art, Robert Chu, phenomenal concept artist. I was building it, but then I just kept running into snags on it. And I was like, I want to get to other things. I'm one of those people where I have like 30 projects in my head.
Oh yeah.
And I'm trying to do too much. And so I eventually have to like say, well, what has to die? There's this harsh term of like killing your babies. And like there's moments as an artist where you have to be like, this isn't working out, or it's not where I want to take it. And you just kind of have to let it die. Even if I had like thousands of people on Instagram being like, this is amazing. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm not into this anymore. And it was just too much work. But there are other things where like I have this, getting used to having the point, this spacecraft model that it's based on a spacecraft my company's building, actually. That took 45 minutes to create in Bricklink Studio. Just done. And that's exactly what it is.
Wow.
So there are some things that are like just rush right through, and other things that I'm like takes me a long time to figure out, because I'm a perfectionist. I want something just right. At least in my mind, I'm thinking something needs to look this way, and like I'll work hours and hours, and my wife will like joke around with me like, you worked 8 hours and now you're gonna like work all the way until like you're. But I become obsessed with my own personal projects. I'm like, I'm done. I got to do it.
Yeah,
I have something in my mind and it has to be made.
It's different when it's your own like inspiration. It doesn't feel as much like work, when, because I run into the same kind of thing. It's, I'll get hyper focused on something and I get the same kind of comments. It's like, you've been working on the lawnmower for like an hour and a half. What are you doing? I'm like, well, it's not starting the way that it should. Like when I do this thing, and it's like, does that matter? Like, just go mow the lawn. Like,
yeah.
It's like, no,
it may be something that no one ever sees, but like it matters to me. And that's the balance I always try to find, is like, no, especially when you're in a social media space. And it's good to have that healthy mindset before jumping into YouTube, I think, because I've heard so many YouTubers like they get burnout. Is I have to be doing this for me. Like, what is that balance? Where is the healthy compromise? Yeah. Like, when to know that like the people that who follow my stuff and love what I produce, like, should I keep creating stuff for them? And at what point do I just still create for me? Like, there's a balance there. Like, where like even like George Lucas with Star Wars, there's a balance of like, okay, you're not listening to your fans, or you need to make it for yourself. Like, where do you, and I don't know what that line is, but it's always good to be thinking about that line. Yeah. And so I could be doing like the stuff that's super popular in the Lego community, especially digital Lego community, is Star Wars.
Sure.
Just do Star Wars, and like I'd probably have 100,000 followers or whatever by doing it. Some of my friends do, but that's not what interests me. Like, I will be creating my own stuff. I mean, I'm making these giant Lego figures. Why? Because it's fun.
No, I'm a big fan of the philosophy of do what you like to do, and it pops up in from other industries as well. Like even like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, they're both in like old interviews and stuff. And it's like, you have to love what you do to the core of your soul, or you're going to burn out. You're going to give up. You're going to quit because it's not fun. It's not enjoyable. And I've seen it on Twitch where somebody, oh man, I'll play a game and they blow up because they're playing whatever. And then when they're like, well, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. And then they tank because that's all they were known for. And then, but I don't know.
There's that constant pressure too, because like, I mean, I go through periods where like I gain hundreds of followers and then I like lose, and like I've lost. I mean, usually at the end of the year I lose quite a bit of followers, but I've lost around like 300 followers. I'm like, oh man, what am I doing wrong? What do I got to do? And then I'm like, Doesn't matter. My like ratio is down. I don't care. I'm going to create stuff that's going to be cool, and people. I think people are going to be like, "Whoa, this is different." Like that's one of the things that comes up a lot is like, "Oh, digital Lego." And what's the point of digital Lego? Why not just make it in real life? And yeah, I want to.
Expensive.
It's expensive, but then like I'm now entering that realm that I was talking about earlier of like stylizing things, and that's where I feel like your argument is invalid at that point because like once you stylize it, like that's something you can't do in real life. Or I mean, and to all those haters of digital Lego, by the way, if you love the Lego movie, you gotta reconsider because that whole thing is digital. They were not gonna spend thousands of hours doing a stop motion explosion.
No way. Yeah, no, like come on. They did, and to their credit, they did a tremendous job of making it look like real Lego. There's like the whole astronaut minifig. That's amazing.
I first watched it and I was like, "This is an amazing stop motion." And then I was like, "Wait, is it?" And I did some research and I'm like, "It's 3D."
Yeah, but they did a really, really good job. It's all looks so cool. Seems like digital would let you experiment much more than physical Legos would. Sure.
Yeah, that is totally true. And it allows you to. There's this fun relationship too of where you design something digitally, and there's been moments where you design something digitally, and even in Bricklink Studio, you have the option to test will it physically stand up. Not the most accurate tool, to be honest, because then you build it in real life and like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't actually hold water. But you learn through that, and it's never a full substitute for the real thing.
Sure.
And like visual effects are never a 100% substitute for like actually just going and filming something. But sometimes you just can't achieve what you want to do. Like even a simple scene of like a stunt or whatever. Like maybe that stunt is just too dangerous, so you're gonna have a digital performer instead of a real performer.
Right.
Otherwise, you're gonna kill your stunt performer. Like sometimes you need VFX for simple things. Yeah. And so 3D has its own purpose, and I'm excited of like what I can produce, but I'm also excited to see what other people like. If some of the 3D digital Lego artists out there that I know, if they start exploring stylization as well, it's going to be super cool. Yeah.
I'm excited. I always like trying to keep an eye on how things progress for the creators and stuff that I get to talk with. It's really, really cool. We are just a little bit over our hour. So as we wrap it up, I tried to find your digitally assembled YouTube video. Do you have the link for that? I'd like to share it out for folks. I know you say it was empty. It's not finished and ready, but for folks to be able to kind of keep an eye on it and follow your progress, I'd like to share that out there. I did throw out your Instagram and your Flickr. Is there anything else as well that you'd like to shout out or thank anybody or tell anything you'd like to tell to the people out there?
Not that I'm not gonna think of. Okay. Yeah, I'm wondering.
Go follow Steven on Instagram.
Yes. That's where I'm gonna have my once I actually start posting to that channel. I think it's probably just not listed yet. It exists, but I don't know.
It might not be public or something yet.
Let's see here.
Because I found your personal one.
Yeah. I don't think it's oh, here we go. And they don't have I don't think it's listed yet. So
that's okay.
It's all good. But if you follow me on Instagram, it's gonna be there, and I'm posting updates on my stories and on my posts. And anything you see on Instagram is gonna be pretty much mirrored on Flickr. Mm-hmm. Any finished post. So you can follow me there too. But
awesome.
Instagram's the place.
There you go. Right on. Well, thanks so very much for joining us today. I'm personally thankful, and I hope the audience enjoyed it as well. This is really cool stuff. So I'm I personally will be keeping an eye out, as they say in the Star Wars. I can't remember the quote now, but the Palpatine line about watching your career with interest or something like that. I'm excited.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be fun. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, and I also like to thank the audience as well for joining us. We do this on every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific. We bring in external experts like Steven to talk about what they do and how they do it, as well as internal experts like Kelly there in the chat to talk about how we do things. And so mark your calendars for that. Wednesdays, 1 p.m. Pacific here on Twitch, YouTube, and I try to put it out to LinkedIn and Twitter as well. So thank you all very much, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye.